can be what you wanna be. Be what you wanna be. You just be what you wanna be with me.
Hello, beautiful people. Sam Bowker here for another episode of Real and Raw Stories. And today I have got a super special treat for you. My beautiful bestie, Miss Emma Barbado. Oh my goodness, like I'm so excited that she agreed to come and hang out with us today. And let me just give you a little bit of backstory about Emma before I bring her on, right? Emma and I first met 20 years ago. So clearly I met her when, we were 10 or 12, of course. And she and I have just become the world's best friends over the last 20 years. I started out, I was like just totally in awe of her. And then I ended up being her PA and her marketing manager. And oh my God, any other hat I could have possibly put on. She is an absolute superstar and she has a resume that is ridiculous. Okay. If you lived on the coast, you would know who she is. But the reality is this woman, she really changed my life. She was my first ever real mindset coach, and she's now gone on to do some magnificent things. So listen, I'm going to let her share a little bit of her fabulosity with you today. I hope you enjoy her as much as I do. Please welcome my friend Emma Barbado. Yay!
Wow, I might just get you just to keep talking about me.
Well,
that was excellent. That was excellent. Wow.
So welcome, Em. Welcome, Em. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us today. And like, guys, I don't know where this is going to go. It could get pretty loose. You're lucky it's 9:30 in the morning because, hey, I had to move my bar and, set my books up instead because otherwise we might have got some of the wrong intentions. So listen, the reason I asked Em to come on today is that she's had a really huge career. I mean, when I first met her, she was like an epic personal trainer doing these boot camps and she got me exercising. So that in itself tells you she was very clever. And then obviously she was a very cool mindset coach. And she was the first person that really taught me that it wasn't that my body was not working the way I wanted it to. It was the fact that my mind was not working the way I wanted it to. And you all know now, like I specialize in working with people around mindset. This woman definitely started me on that journey. So, Em, why don't you tell guys, all of our peeps here today, like what kind of got you into that in the first place? And then what's kind of happened over the last 20 years? Because there's a lot of changes that are,
there is a lot. Yeah, that is a lot. That's a loaded answer. But I think probably in reference to what you're talking about when we talk, how did it evolve into when I left my exercise diploma and I was all jacked up about this vision of this business that I wanted to create. As you do, you come out as a student, you're like, right, I'm going to change the world with my drill sergeant, black, white, everybody's a textbook, calories in, calories out, smash yourself. So that's what I came armed with out of education, because that's what the infrastructure and the format taught us. If you train this amount and you eat this is what the result gets. And as a few of people know, my very first debut into the industry was in a women's gym. For those on the coast, Priority One. I don't know if you remember it, but it was a cracker of a first gym. He had such a good business. So it was really when women's gyms were just kind of sort of like sneaking around on the side. But I sort of walked in and I had women that were just lifting 5 kilo weights and, working on the stepper and stuff like that. And I was like, right, let's go. So basically that ended up in everybody dressed in camo with their face painted, hauling ass on Terrigal Beach. And I'm like, this is excellent. I'm going to get the results that you need, including you. So, and it was great. And it was fantastic for the time and for almost like what the ego needed to go, sweet, I'm putting in effort, I will get these results. And obviously when you put that into specifically a female, I just started to notice that usually at that 12-week mark, some earlier, it would just short circuit itself every single time. No matter what, no matter how many times, sorry, I'm going to have to excuse my dog's barking in the background. No matter what, every single time, like clockwork, something would slip, something would crack. And instead of me just saying, okay, this is the one person's mindset that's weak, why was it happening consecutively across specifically the female psyche at a particular time? Sometimes earlier, I was able to maybe match it to maybe her monthly cycle. And I thought, cool, I'm onto something. No, and I wasn't. And so then down the rabbit hole of the mind. Do you know what I mean? 6 years of study that took. To get the exercise physiology was only 2, but to get the mind was 6. and the layers and layers. It was the biggest rabbit hole I think I have ever opened. Probably the deepest and the most exciting, but the most fragile and the most gentle. It was I had the reputation as being an incredibly aggressive, forthright trainer, but it was an incredibly gentle process because you're dealing with these, as you know, these very, very subtle onion layers of the mind. And that was almost the 10 years. That's when I sort of changed from being a personal trainer to what, now saw as a mind coach, because I think the big thing was when people started asking me, what's the difference, Emma? Which is more effective? Is it the training that you're doing or the food that you're eating? So is it 50-50%? Like, what's the deal? And I was just always, it's neither. It's 100% mindset. It's 100% mindset. Scrap off trying to go, I should be doing this. So in your context, should I be doing more meditation? Should I be doing more of healthy? So it's like scrap it all until you got the mindset. The rest is just gimmicks, to be honest.
So I've got a question, because most of my, I guess, listeners here know a little bit about my history. They know that I've struggled with addiction. And I remember coming to you and I was definitely struggling again with addiction. And I remember coming to you and I was like, right, quite logically, I was like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get really fit, I'm going to get really healthy, and I'm going to stop taking drugs and, give me my plan. I just want you to give me my plan. And I was really I was clear in my head. That's what I needed. And I remember you said to me, Sam, listen, I could write you a plan. It won't be worth the paper it's written on. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was used to getting what I wanted. So I told someone I wanted something and then they didn't give it to me, and you didn't give it to me. But what was really interesting to me, and by the way, peeps, I can see that I've got this strobe light effect going on. I've decided that's because Emma and I have just got so much energy and magnification. The computers are about to fritz out. So yeah, bear with that. But I just realized what happened after that session was the next day I woke up and I had no voice, right? I couldn't speak. And I remember going to the doctor and the doctor said I had laryngotracheitis and gave me this really big medication. And I remember going back and seeing you, Em, and I said, sister, I kind of mouthed, I couldn't speak. And your response to me was, it's like you've just gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. Could you speak a little bit more into that? Because I really feel like that was a profound awakening for me about how much I'd been shut down. Could you explain that to our listeners?
I think, I had the advantage of knowing you so intimately, right, as a friend, and being able to watch. And everybody knows that you can't see your own shit. You just can't. But it's really dangerous because when you've got an outside source, they're looking through their own filters and they're looking through their own almost biases and judgments, where it's like, well, you just need to do this, you just need to do that. Whereas in that moment, I probably got a chance to look at you like a client and not a friend, but I could match it with deep, intimate knowledge of your background. And mate, it was addiction. Like, this isn't, can you do me a plan so I can get fitter? I'm like, no, and no. Not even remotely. And it was just, I think what the switch point for you and a lot of the work that you do and a lot of the work that your clients will find is, we call it the 7 scorpions theory, and it's a bit of mythology behind it, where which I always love to be able to use those acronyms of mythology, where they said that Isis, the goddess Isis, was able to cure a scorpion bite and the poison of a scorpion bite by calling the scorpion's name. And obviously with anything that's a mythology based and anything that's a fictional base, to give us some sort of reference, archetypal reference in our world, the poison stops seeking itself when you call it out. When you call it out and you push hard enough and you find it. And then it was actually, I remember in that moment, it wasn't me going, this is what I've noticed, is just being able to penetrate further enough. And somewhere within that conversation, you named a scorpion. Yeah, and just at that moment, it was to stop you naming anything else, stop you using your I get everything I want voice, and shut the fuck up and be able to turn around and be able to go, just that. Just hold it at that. Because what happens is we get the scorpion's voice, the name, but we layer our shit on top of it. We layer our stuff on top of it. And we go, oh, no, but it's really this. Oh, no, but it's really that. And that was just your own greater mind. That was your psyche turning around going, just this. We are not going to budge until you just hold this. So it actually stopped you from speaking to validate any other direction, because it was straight to the core, so hard, so deep. So that was always that was a basis of a lot of that work, was naming the scorpion, and that was the hard part. But you know what? Most people know the name of their own scorpion. Most people know their own name. It requires that, the safety, and obviously you trusted me. through the friendship, and you knew that I wasn't ever going to weaponize any of the information that you gave. Like, there's a lot of sort of moving pieces when you give that sort of real, like, you're going straight to the core of someone's being. You can't do that with a punch. There has to be a lot of layers of trust, a lot of layers of, okay, this person isn't going to weaponize it. This person isn't going to take advantage of me in this vulnerable state. And you were pretty much in a vulnerable state. I remember it very clearly. So you had already, weapons were down. Yeah. So I think there was a lot of things that led to that moment of you just going, there it is.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, when you were just talking about the scorpions, then, like, I literally was just getting shivers down my spine, because I remember that like it was yesterday. And it's really interesting. I know in the work that I do, there's a lot of people that talk about wanting to find their voice. And although my body physically shut my voice down, there is a lot of people I know that experience, not being able to use their voice. And so for them, it manifests in some other kind of addiction, because they're not using their voice. They then start numbing and medicating with alcohol or cigarettes or gambling and things like that. Listen, I would love, because obviously I know a lot about you, I would love you to share with everybody what it was like to be one of the, I know that you got to be one of the coaches on Australia's Next Top Model, and obviously The Biggest Loser. What was that experience like? Because those people, obviously certainly on Australia's Next Top Model, young girls. Oh, my internet's gone. Is that mine or yours?
I think.
Oh, you frozen. Can you see me? Oh, there we go.
Got you now. Yep.
Yeah, so you've got like, these young impressionable girls, and you're going out there and you're being put there to train their mindset and their body. Can you share a little bit about what that experience was like?
Do you want to know the truth of what that experience is like? I can say that 10 years on, pushing shit uphill. So you've got people on a TV platform that are there for a reason of promotion, and you're there potentially endorsing a conflicting information. Like, you've got one narrative that you're like, guys, kind of going to need you to get this, and they're like, nah. The show, whatever the platform or the intention, is another narrative. And it's not rocket science that it's ratings, that it is entertainment, and that you at some point are going to be used as a puppet in that game. And you're either in or you're not. Like, it's really, to bring it down to that. You get to work and you get to see an incredible amount of what's created. Like, there are reality TV shows. So whilst they're not scripted, or there's always that debate about scripted, but they're narrated within a way, they're guided, and the story blocks are given to you within a way. Now, you're either in with that story or you're not. So it got to the stage where, especially when it was with The Biggest Loser, it was obvious that my story was going to differ from the story box at one particular point. So I was lucky enough to be a part of that show and not a part of the weight loss competition side of it. So that was what worked so well about why I was brought in. There was one trainer who had nothing to do with how much weight they lost. And because it did so well, and the role did so well, and they wanted to include me more, give more airtime, of course, I'd have a team of my own that would eventually end up in a weight loss competition. And my whole entire message, that everything that I built my brand about, and the whole entire thing, was to try to get people out of that. So it was going to implode itself at some particular point. But TV doesn't lie about what it is. It's like, you sign up for me or you don't. And when I said we are conflicting, they were like, see ya, we've got 1,000 trainers that would like to take your place. And they did. Yeah, it's just how it is.
So I remember that time. And so what's been really interesting for me, on the sidelines, being your friend, obviously, for such a long period of time, is sort of seeing you go through this path and this journey, and getting to this place where a lot of people, today, we're in this world of Insta famous, and everybody wants to be famous, and you had it there and you walked all the way from it. So, which I totally get, and I respected at the time. Excuse me. Can you tell us where your journey has taken you, from going from, being on television, being, one of the most well-known trainers in Australia, being very successful in your business, and you walked away from it all? Can you share a little bit about how that journey started for you?
It started going down into the car park after I'd resigned, going, fuck, what have I just done? I'm not going to lie. I've just walked away, and my ego was like, you idiot. We have been that opportunity, blah, 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 blah. And I beat myself up for like, oh, what a moron. You and your righteous purpose. Ugh, shut up. Right. I moped around in a bathrobe for about a week to go. You've been building your whole business and you were just given a national opportunity on a franchise and you decided to get moralistic and righteous. You asshole.
Yeah, but you know what, Emma? I remember that very well, and I remember sitting there with you in your bathrobe whilst you were there in a bit of a delusional state. But I remember thinking to myself, like, I could not have respected you more in that moment than I did, because I just it'll talk about walking your walk, and talking your talk.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's never clear, right? So why you made these moves is never clear. But I think to go back to the question that you asked me, what happened? What it gave me was the agility. It was probably the greatest form of rebellion because I had to claim my individuality so I could stay with the agility of the work that was coming. What I mean by that is a big profile, Instagram or anything, doesn't matter how it's coming, please fit into this cookie cutter that people will label you as forever, right? Forever. And in this case, it was going to be, the warrior, the female warrior, right? That was going to be then the label. The anti-bully, stand up for yourself, it was going to have all of these labels attached to it. Now, when you do that and you put that out on a public forum, they own that. They own that. They own the name. They own the everything, and they just push you. And mate, it's worth millions. It's worth millions. But then you are then sitting on that string and you maneuver and you play the game. And I just knew I needed more agility in my career to do what it is that I wanted to be able to do, which made perfect sense when the rebellion hit. And probably the work that I was more proud of and the stuff that I enjoyed that was boots in, teeth in, skin game was the rebellion of what everybody now knows in common vernacular now. Everybody knows it. It's common knowledge is what we call the body positive movement now. So now we open up our books, our catalogues, our magazines, where there's open, healthy debate. We see media now with a range of all women, all sizes, all shapes. We have now women getting up and doing where it's just normal that a size 18-year-old woman would be doing a bra ad for a size 18, blah, blah, blah. Everything's like we understand it. We see Target where they're actually advertising where they have women over 50. Holy shit. Imagine that. Where we just take it as a given. But back then, in the early 2000s, anything to do with fitness and anything to do with health and anything to do with wellness was a 25-year-old white Caucasian, pretty blonde. Maybe she might have had a brunette beside her.
Lorna Jane-esque.
You said it.
Yeah, I know. So, I can.
And then because I was on ground zero with the women who were where you'd be getting them to a certain point and, the media machine would come in and it'd crush it and it'd derail it. And these are the messages that people have been getting since the 80s, right? So it's deep in the belief system. So we'd get to a certain point and then the society's infrastructure would crush it. But I could smell a rebellion coming. I could smell it. And it was so rewarding to be a part of it when women could act, which everybody calls now in 2021, they call it the cancel culture. But there was a generation of Gen X women who were mothers of young daughters who refused to have it happen to them on their watch. And I called them the wolf mothers. And they were the ones that just went, nah, this is not happening to my kid, because they could see their message that happened to the media go down into their children. And they were the ones that are responsible for the body positive movement. I mean, it's got a nice label. It's the body positive. I'm like, wasn't that at the beginning? It was full-fledged anarchy. They were shutting down brands overnight by questioning their advertising principles, sharing it virally on social media and shutting them down. And that meant millions to these companies, millions. So they, for the first time, because the consumers were the soldiers, they won.
Yeah.
They won. And now we're sitting in a space where you can contest. I mean, sure, there's still that type of advertising, beach body advertising ready, but it's a pretty dangerous game now. So that I wouldn't have been able to do that if I had stayed in that space, famous on television. It wouldn't have been the same.
It's funny, because it's funny the trends in bodies, right now, thanks to the Kardashians, that, very Brazilian, huge backside, bum implants has become a thing, and whenever I'm having a moment feeling a bit uncertain about myself, my daughter says to me, but Mum, you've got a really big bum. That's so good. And Right. But see, the fact that that's the messaging she gets, right? And so the reason it's so interesting is it just goes to show you how vulnerable we are as women, and men too, but like how vulnerable, especially I think women are, to whatever is going on in the world. Like you go back to the days of Marilyn Monroe, and that big curvilicious was what was in. And then, you went through kind of like 20 years ago, and it was that tiny, Kate Moss twiggy stick thing was in, and now we're coming back into, like you said, a bit more of a body positive movement, which is, certainly good to see. And since I've got a naturally big bum, yeah, bring it on. So listen, now look, for those of you that can see Em's t-shirt, she's got ducks nuts written across the front. And, I've got to say, only my friend Em could start a business called Ducks, Nuts and Co. and pull it off and be fabulous with it. Why don't you share with everybody a little bit about how that came about and what you're doing right now?
Well, it's funny. It's a body care range, right, which sounds kind of nice and innocent. It's an e-commerce body care range where we do products that just ease banged up bodies. Like we're sore, right, especially us in our over 40s. We do stuff like that and we're sore. So it's like, I want to soak in a bath. I need stuff to rub on. And so the actual product line wasn't where the inspiration came from as much as the mindset of where it was resonating so much at the time with clients and with the customers. It actually came at a time when, and especially us, where we grew up in the 80s and all our solutions felt so simple. Like and especially Australian 80s, I mean, oh my God, like we are the seatbeltless. We're the generation that were fed Tang as orange juice, and we've turned out okay. We were everything was fixed with a Radox bath and Ajax, and so we look at the problems now and we're like, what do you mean? Like we're looking at if you look at our skincare that's given to us, I always joke about the fact that there's some, I don't know, mushroom fungi growing from the Amazon jungle that some bloody pygmy had to pick, and now that's what you're putting on your face. And then our generation are like, we were raised on oil of Yulan. But there is a nurture. We find a lot of comfort in the simple solutions, and we get really conflicted. Our generation gets really conflicted with, why are you fuckers making it all so complex? Why are you making this shit so difficult? Mum would fix me with Dettol. Why is this something? So we cling to that because that's when we grew up. That's our belief systems. And when we look back at the nostalgia of Australian 80s, we love the fact that it was so simple. And I think especially now, it's been so popular and it's taken off even more so with, COVID. But when we changed the branding messaging to that retro branding, it flashed everybody back to, like this breath of fresh air to remember what it was like to grow up with that level of simplicity. And maybe if you're sore and maybe if you've just had a big day or a big week, then maybe just a salt bath is just a good way just to keep pieces together. So you can just keep, sometimes we just want our solutions just a quick fix and simple. We do not need a fungi grown from the Amazon. We don't need some guru or shaman to give it to us. And Gen X are a really empowered generation to be like, just enough. Like, mate, I look at what's happening on TikTok and it blows my brains. That level of, why are we doing that? What happened? Why are we Why are we getting changed 20 times and jumping up and down in different outfits? I don't get it, because it's a body care brand, but it's salt. It's just magnesium, because sometimes that's just all you need. Like you don't need to, it doesn't need to be, anything else. So that's what's really, really resonated. And that's what's made the company. So we started it up in smack bang in the middle of COVID last year, and it's just escalated from there because it's the anti-complexity. We validate simple. That's it.
Yeah, I love it. I must admit, this morning I used the Ducks Nuts Coffee Body Scrub, and my skin feels amazing,
Right.
and like just as a price point thing, because I'm a bit of a sucker for branding, and I got conned into something just the other day, because I don't know if anybody else is noticing, right, but since we can't go shopping and we can't walk around and we can't do stuff, has anybody been just buying stuff online? Because that's, I have to really take my credit card off me. But I, just from a price point standpoint, I'd love you to share with people what your stuff costs, because I bought something the other day, totally conned. I know I don't need it, but I did it anyway. And it was like for a little body scrub thing, it was like, I want to say maybe $65, which I know is insane, ridiculous, but I just had to try it once. So I know that you are way more reasonable. So can you just kind of give people a bit of an idea of the range, what kind of money they're looking at?
Well, I think it's because, something like that, I think from an e-commerce brand maker, whoever has convinced you in their sales funnel that was worth the $60, credit to them. That's an excellent brand. Mecca. Okay. So global brand. And it's there and it's pumping and it's thriving. But I just think it stayed along with our lines of just keep it simple, packaging simple, just keep the ingredients simple. And what happens is by someone paying $18.50 for what is truly simple, our margin mark isn't as much. But when people keep coming back and they just keep buying the one that's $18.50, it's just it comes down to that. So we would rather be used in someone's bathroom on a regular basis. We would rather not have our bath salts up and, with rose petals and blessed by a guru from India and not selling them for $30. We'll be selling them for $14.50 because of what we know is in it. And we're going back to the humbleness of our generation who keep turning around going, don't bullshit me. What's in it? And if I like it and if it works, and I'm going to give this hemp oil a go, and if it works, guess what? I'm just going to keep on buying with you. Now, you've said I've been conned. See how you're like, I've been conned. I'm not going back. I'm just going to go back to my duck's nuts, $18.50.
100%. And the only reason that I did it, really, if I'm truthfully honest, is that my personal trainer smelt really yummy one day, and I said, "What have you got on?" And she said, "Oh, I've got this stuff." And I went, "Oh, really cool." And so then, of course, I wanted to buy just that stuff, and and she goes, "Oh, and it's it smooths and it tightens." And I went, "Yeah, fuck, of course it does." So I bought it, and I know that I'll just keep using my duck's nut stuff, and I know that was a stupid thing that I want. It's a boredom buy, right? Yeah. But it's certainly not something I'll keep buying, because the reality is that's going to last probably a couple of goes in the shower, right? A body scrub doesn't last that long. So yeah, cool. So one of the stories that you told me, and I think you've left that out. So I want you to tell everybody the story about the actual name. How did the name Duck's Nuts come about, Dale? Because those of you that don't know, Emma has got the most cracking husband. His name is Muzz. And actually, just for giggles and kicks, right? If you're following me, you really should be following these guys. Make sure on Instagram, is it Duck's Nuts, or how do people find
Duck's
you?
Nuts. Yeah, Duck's Nuts Co on Instagram. Yeah.
Okay. So Muzz, Emma's husband, has Muzz's latte art. And I don't know, I've got to just tell you, like, seriously, the fact that Emma has already been on a reality show, unless she directs it, hosts it, and it's her own, it'll never happen. But these two need their own show. They are freaking hilarious. So maybe tell them how you got the name, because it's a bit of an interesting name. It is definitely an 80s name.
Yeah, and those who buy it, they go, yeah, I know Duck's Nuts. My grandfather used to say that was the Duck's Nuts all the time. We know it. So, and Muzz is a tradie, and he'd come home filthy and sore all the time. Oh, shit, I'm sore. Oh, shit, because he'd be training in the gym, big days out on the surf, and then he'd be on the job site, right? So he was always sore. So after saying it numerous times, I was like, look, just get in the bath. And I just made just a home remedy of the bath salts that I had, cut up a whole heap of different ones, chucked it all in, put a little bit of oil in there, and he just went silent. He was in that bathroom for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. He came out absolutely just like intoxicated, could hardly speak. And all he could say was, oh, that bath was the Duck's Nuts. And I was like, see, I told you. And then we kind of laughed it. And then he came home filthy on a Friday, and we had to go to a dinner. And anyone who knows, if they've got a tradie partner, they have this hand soap that is, swear to God, it is toxic, industrial, in a pump, like rip your skin off stuff that they buy from a hardware store, not Mecca, not Bodycoat, from Bunnings is their skincare. I mean, fuck. So, and it didn't get clean. I was like, listen, get up in the shower. I went down to the coffee machine and I just made it up there and then. I just made up all the bits and pieces that I knew that were in it. I said, get this onto you. And he goes, what is it? He goes, how am I meant to use it? So I told him how to use a first coffee scrub he's ever used in his life. And the bathroom looked like there had been a brawl in it. But he came out polished, shining, cleansed and shining. And he's like, I feel like the Duck's Nuts. And so after he'd said it twice, I said, go on, take it to the boys. before, when you come home, just use it for your hands. Anyway, they're all in there, on the job site, under a tap, using body scrub on their hands to go home to their missus. And then their wives wanted to buy it, and then it all started to go from there.
Yeah.
The bar salts and the body scrub were the first two to go off from there. Yeah.
See, and I just love that story. You have always been an absolute legend at marketing anything, but that story is just priceless. And I think, really, those of you, I know we've got people that watch us from all over the world, but, if you're in Australia, that we love a good Aussie story. We love a good Aussie battler. We love someone that's, doing it for the Aussies. And I know that all of your products, I believe, they're all made in Australia. They're packaged in Australia. Like, it's an Australian-made, good Aussie brand, all natural products. Yeah, and you worked on the mind. Now you worked on the physicality of the body, and now you're working on the biggest organ of the body, the skin. So it's pretty obvious that you're all about wellness and taking care. So listen, I like to kind of, finish this show with asking people a couple of questions. I like to know, what are you watching currently? What's your favorite? And it doesn't have to be inspirational. Just what are you watching? What are you binging on? Anything interesting?
Oh, God. What are we binging on?
What's one of your faves?
We all know that everybody's waiting for Yellowstone.
Yes.
We're all white knuckling it till November. I know we're all getting our inner cowboy hit. So, and I know you are. So we're sitting there waiting for that. And you know what? To be honest, I've actually been a little bit because I'm so in this retro space within my brand. I have loved going back to, because all the new stuff I'm kind of like, nah. I found huge amounts of satisfaction going back to all the originals. Like, I've gone back to the original Terminators, the original Lethal Weapons, the original Mad Max, the original, I think I did a couple of Olivia Newton-Johns there, Twist of Fate, like a couple of crackers. And I've actually some early Quentin Tarantino's, because I think that there's a humility in how those movies that are made, and you kind of go back to the little girl you were when you were watching it. I think any Aussies here watching it today, if you watch anything Olivia Newton-John, I mean, it's going to be a great day.
I just couldn't agree more. Hey, tell me, who are you listening to on podcasts? Anyone you follow that you think's pretty awesome?
Do you know what? I actually had to, because we had such a massive Father's Day, and so I had to actually get off. I actually had to go to something super, super light. I was in the car a lot because we were delivering orders, and I needed to keep the vibe up. And do you know who was fantastic? Was Hamish and Andy. I usually go into big, heavy, I get down into rabbit holes of topics of conversation, and I love Rogan and just the different sort of guests that he gets on, but I just needed something light and easy. Mate, that 40-minute podcast is a cracker. And it actually got me through the last week, because you sit there and you giggle all the way through because it's light. And I think a lot of us are needing light at the moment. So that's my number one recommendation at the moment.
Okay, Hamish and Andy. And what about, is there any kind of, pearls of wisdom, or any books, or any kind of lasting messages you'd like to share with peeps?
Lasting message. I think what seems to be coming up at the moment with so much conflict around, and I know we don't want to talk about the C word, which we won't, but I think now I'm noticing a lot of people doing really interesting what's called shadow work at the moment, because everybody is in this real pepped up, anxious state of, I need to thrash out, I need to point my subconscious, aggressive frustration at where my freedoms are. I've been noticing a rise to the top of people who are game enough to do a bit of self-awareness work. I see people's self-discipline and self-checking ability really rising to the top for those who have it, and the ones who don't falling straight into the arse of a bottomless pit of shit. So in general, I've found that the people thriving not thriving, no one's thriving, but the people who are kind of got one grip on this okay are the ones who are keeping their own self in check. Where is my opinion needed? Where is it not? Where is it valid? Where is it not? What's going on? Where do I voice? Where do I not? Where do I feel comfortable in questioning what I want to be able to do? And that comes down from people probably in your group where they've been taught or have been practicing self-regulation. Those who don't, mate, they are fire hydrants at the moment, and they are just blasting through their own spinal column of their central nervous system must be rat shit, because we're trying to skid on ice. So that's what I've just noticed at the moment. For those of you who have learnt the discipline and skill of self-regulation, you won't just thrive. You're going to come out of this with another skin shed, feeling almost bulletproof by the time you get through it. The ones who don't are going to feel like they've just done 10 rounds with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
You would have noticed it. You would have noticed it in clinic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a very interesting time, peeps. Well, listen, beautiful. I think on that note, we both get to get on with our day. But listen, before we go, I just decided I'm going to give away some Ducks Nuts products. And so, to support my little friend here and to get you guys some love for those aching body muscles. So what you got to do to go into the competition is you need to share this Real and Raw Stories, okay? So you can share it. You need to do hashtag Ducks Nuts, right? So that tells me that you want some Ducks Nuts, and just tag me as well, Sam Bowker, so that I know that you've done that. And tell us why. Why do you need some Ducks Nuts? Why do you need some Ducks Nuts in your life today? And so just for people to follow you, Em, where do they find you?
So my own personal page is Duke and Dame.
Duke and Dame.
As for IG and Facey, and then my business page is ducksnuts.co. So
Perfect.
you can tag it in on that, and you can follow that, and you will probably find, if you're looking for a lot of, deep, meaningful stuff, you may not find it on those pages.
If you want to giggle and you want to laugh your ass off, then I highly recommend you follow Em, because I tell you, if I'm ever feeling a little bit, like, I don't know, all forlorn and I just need a little bit of a giggle, I'll just go and see what Emma's doing, because she's hilarious. She's always up to something fun. So, guys, listen, Em, thank you so much for coming and hanging out today. It's been amazing.
Pleasure.
I know you and I could spend hours.
Yeah.
We'll do that over a wine soon. On that note, peeps, I'm going to love you and leave you. Hope you have a beautiful day. Make it count. You're never going to get this one back. And we'll see you on the other side. Bye.
Bye.